Welcome back. As promised, let's get back into that voice polling. The polling today says a majority of Australians, 51%, would vote no to the referendum if it was held today. Now, it's not good for the Prime Minister. Back in September last year, the same pollsters found support for the voice was at 64%. So that's close to 2/3 of all Australians supported it. And although support for the voice is strong in New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania, it shows that there's 3 other states against it. Now, don't be complacent, though, if you're in the no camp. I've seen polls predict plenty of outcomes that have never eventuated. So there's a long way to go in this fight before the voice is rightly defeated. Joining me now, former Deputy PM John Anderson and Senior Fellow at the Menzies Research Centre, Nick Cater. John, a majority of states, a majority of the country now are against it. If this poll is to be believed, how do you guard against complacency?
Well, it's a very good question. It is incredibly important that the Australian people engage in this, because this goes to the heart, I'm afraid, of what the Prime Minister has been telling Australians at large and Indigenous leaders on the other hand. He says it's a minor change. We should do it because it's polite and it would be rude not to in one audience, and to others that it's a major change. Let's make it work. Let's end the farce. It is a major change. It entrenches the most extraordinary changes to the Constitution. There's no getting away from that. And the problem we've got is that not many people understand the importance of the Constitution and how it works. We know that. They know it's a rule book. But as they become aware that it's a major change in the rule book, it does introduce a 4th arm of government. I mean, Paul Kelly, no less, who's a superb mind around these things, has warned that this is not a minor change. Australians are starting to realise how big a deal it is. And to then turn around and say that, as the Yes camp is now saying, that this is because of, there are lies and deceptions from the No camp, is disingenuous in the extreme. In fact, I think we've got to the point where we now have to ask of the Prime Minister, do you really believe that this is a minor change? Or do you, in fact, know that it's a major change, but you're hoping that by not releasing too much detail and engaging too much debate with the Australian people, you can push it through anyway? And that's a really serious matter for the Australian people as well as for the Prime Minister.
Nick, I made the point at the top of the show, this is still a David and Goliath battle. There's literally tens of millions of dollars in the Yes camp, plus all the public money and the tax deductibility, none of which is available to the No camp. What's cutting through with the No camp is just common sense. I think Australians defaulting to being concerned about 2 classes of Australian being made out of this change. How do you see things?
The people in favour of the voice want to make a radical change to our Constitution, to the way we're governed. Now, if you want to make a radical change, you have to make the case for it. Now, clearly they haven't, and that's why people are turning away from this. And what's really, I think, getting quite frustrating is the way the Yes case refuses to debate the issues and are now blaming disinformation, lies and disinformation from people like, well, without wishing to embarrass him, a distinguished former Deputy Prime Minister, John Anderson, a distinguished Prime Minister, John Howard, a distinguished Prime Minister, Tony Abbott. This to just dismiss this as disinformation and not realise that there are very, very strongly held views, and rightly so, on the No side against this voice getting up. I think we want to see a little bit more honesty and perhaps a little truth-telling from the Yes campaign.